there's one segment of our society that resents that, and they're intolerant to people who make money even when it's made honestly. But then there's another segment of our culture. They're intolerant to how other people use their freedoms in a social way, and there's something to be said about allowing people to live their life as they choose. It's hard for people to accept that when some of the things that people do you don't believe in. But think about the First Amendment. The First Amendment is there, and a lot of nasty things are said and taught. And because I endorse the First Amendment doesn't mean I endorse, the ability and the right for somebody to read about communism and all these other things. And yet that's what they say. When I say I want to legalize freedom, oh, you mean you would allow people to actually use marijuana when they're sick? And then this freedom of choice, it has led me to the conclusion that even if you don't want to, we ought to allow people who want to drink raw milk, they ought to be allowed without the government. But there will be people that do things that you will just disapprove of. Now, I don't think in this town anybody would complain, but there are some places in this country, they think you shouldn't gamble. Did you know that? So, no, and obviously we should tolerate people's behavior and all that they do, and we should be open to that with one rule. Don't mess with your neighbor. Don't touch anybody else's. Don't touch their property. So what does this do, a society like that, where you're tolerant of inequalities but a lot of prosperity, and tolerant of people in how they behave? I think it brings people together. All of a sudden, people come together, and they might even look different because they have different reasons they want to be free. Some people want to be free for economic reasons, and they don't even care about making $10 million. They just, they enjoy their life and make a couple bucks and go on their way. So that's their business. It's just that if they run their personal life in a way where they harm themselves and get sick or cause some problems for themselves, or economically they don't do well, they just can't come and use force and go to the government and say, you gave me my freedom, but I blew it. It was beyond my control, and therefore I want you to go to my neighbor and steal from him and take care of me. You can't have it that way. Freedom is really a very new idea. Written history is barely 6,000 years. That's a very, very short time. But for freedom, it's a long, long time, because the ideas of freedom have just been so gradually developed over the years. And the best experiment ever for a free society has been the United States. And there's no reason in the world we can't keep it that way, and we should, as soon as possible, restore our liberties so that we can become productive again. But as I just described, freedom means one thing to one group and something to another group. We have to bring this back together. Freedom is one unit. Personal liberty and economic liberty are one and the same, because it comes from you as an individual, because you have your right to your life and the right to your liberty and the right to keep what you earn. One of the words that I use so often to describe myself is I don't volunteer the word libertarian. I think there's shortcomings in conservative. Liberal used to be a good word, not such a good word now. And actually, who doesn't want to be progressive with their ideas, but you can't use that word either. But I like the word non-intervention. I don't want to, and I have said, if I am to be your president, it isn't because... I've described my qualification. I think I did it this weekend, because my answers are different. Have you noticed that? They're different than some of the others. See, I don't have to be so smart and so knowledgeable to know how to take care of you. All I want to do is release you from the burden of the government so you can take care of yourself. And I don't want to be the central economic planner. I don't want to plan your economic life. I don't know what is best for you, but I do know that a free market economy and sound money will allow you to prosper, and that is what you need. But in the other area that goes along with this, personal liberty and economic liberty, there's one other thing that applies as well. Because in our Constitution and in this principle that we have also means if I don't and we should not tell you how to run your life, and we shouldn't tell you how to run your economic life, why in the world should we believe that we can tell other people how to run their country? I used to make fun of our foreign policy. I still make fun of our foreign policy. But our foreign policy, I used to describe it as we had two choices. We go to a country, instead of taking the advice of the founders, say, we want to be your friends, we want to trade with you, and we want to relate to you, and we are not looking for a fight. But we go to a country and we say, and they might have maybe natural resources or something, and we'll tell them, okay, this is what we want. And if it's a weak country, which generally it is, but they have natural resources, they say, okay, what do you do? What do you do? And we prop up the government so they listen to us, so we give them money, lots of it. Billions of dollars, like Egypt, you know, $70 billion, and yeah, they're really a reliable friend. And then we, if they don't, sometimes we give them money, then they turn on us. My goodness, they got tired of us all. And what do? We drop bombs on them. And then it dawned on me, I said, why can't we have this third option? You know, talking to them and be their friend. I mean, we don't give money and we don't bomb Canada, and we get along with them pretty well. But I finally, now there's a fourth option, and it's worse than the other two, a bombing or paying them money. And that's the foreign policy we have with Pakistan. We give them money at the same time we're bombing them. And then we wonder why we have difficulties in dealing with them. And I could go into a long dissertation about Pakistan and all, but just believe me, we could handle Pakistan in a much better way. We can't expect to really have the type of cooperation when we're literally, like today, we were trying to assassinate an American citizen this week, which is absolutely illegal, and they missed, and they killed 2 innocent people or 4 innocent people. I mean, where does this assassination bit come from? And we're not outraged. We should be outraged that this has been accepted. So we have become a nation of perpetual war, perpetual aggression, secret prisons, torture, and assassinations, even with American citizens. We wouldn't need to do that, believe me. We wouldn't. But would this hurt our defense? People say, oh, there he goes again. He doesn't want any national defense. You know, it just happens that I spent 5 years in the military. I know a little bit and understand it a little bit. But today, I'll tell you, we're in a lot of trouble because of that, and we're not going to see our way out of it unless we change our policies. And because even though there's plenty of people out there that still believe that we should be over there, I just tell them, even if you do, it doesn't matter. We're running out of money, so we're going to have to come home. So we might as well come home in a more deliberate fashion and not wait for the final breakdown like happened in the Soviet system. So we should definitely come home. We should have a sensible foreign policy, and we should do all these things. And there's nothing that should get in our way. The revolutionary spirit is here, and I say that in an intellectual sense. And not only do we not want to take the good part of our Constitution, there's nothing that says that we can't do better. Even the gold standard was far from a perfect gold standard. We've learned a lot about monetary policy. We've learned a lot about how we can even improve on our Constitution. But let's not take it for granted that we can change the Constitution by court rulings and by the Congress or by a president signing statements. There is a provision in the Constitution that says you can amend the Constitution. They didn't think it should be overly rigid, but the other side tells us, oh, it was never meant to be overly rigid. It was meant to be changes for the times and be modern and updated in their way. But, you know, one example of the change in attitude, when they wanted to prohibit the use of alcohol, they changed the Constitution. Can you imagine them changing the Constitution for all the things that they do now? Just think of this monstrous war on drugs has been going on. Actually, the modern day war on drugs has been since the early 70s. These past 40 years, they have probably spent $500–600 billion. The prisons are full of nonviolent criminals and nonviolent people because they didn't commit violent crimes. And it hasn't stopped the use of drugs. So the war on drugs has turned out to be a lot worse than the problems that we have when people take drugs. But these questions can all be answered with the same answer, that freedom is the answer, liberty is the cause, rule of law is important. Everybody should live within the rule of law. And today, the government doesn't live within the rule of law. I imagine some of you might have seen on the web page a bumper sticker I have on my desk, you know, admonition to the government. It says, don't steal. The government hates competition. But we are in a phase where things are changing. They're changing rapidly, and you're involved, and that is good. Our numbers are growing, and the message is strong and powerful. It's an American message. It's a freedom message, and there's a lot of enthusiasm. And to truly get involved, you have to realize how difficult it is and how long it might take and the problems that we face. But in the meantime, when you gather together and meet like this, one thing is important because we don't know exactly what tomorrow will bring. So while you're at it, it's a just cause, and have a lot of fun fighting for that just cause. Thank you.